Hello, it's Melinda from Scrapbookingcraft and welcome to our scrapbooking class. So this is our Cogs class, let's call it. So this is a double page scrapbook page. Could easily turn into an art journal page too. So thank you for purchasing our kit. So this is the first page we'll work on. We'll sort of do the backgrounds together and then we'll work on the single pages and finish them off. And this is the second page. Of course, you can change them round to suit your photos if you have different landscape photos or portrait photos when you're finally putting it together. So these are just sort of placeholders for photos. So apart from your kit, what will you need? Firstly, we're going to make these little tiley things, and we need some, they are actually plastic that have come out of the stencil. So we need some alcohol inks to colour them. Any sort of shade of blue will work, sort of darker blues will work. These ones are the Paper Mill. Tim Holtz alcohol inks will work at your creations. If you don't have alcohol inks and you've not heard of alcohol inks before, alcohol inks basically work well on plastic, non-porous paper. They don't work on regular paper, so this is plastic, so they work well on that. They work well on Yupo paper. So they're an alcohol, they have a bit of smell to them with a dye sort of suspended in them. So if you don't have alcohol inks at all, don't worry, you could actually add a little bit of paint to your white pieces. Won't get quite the same effect, but you'll get a slightly different effect. Or you could try some liquid inks just to give them a bit of colour. Have a bit of an experiment. But don't worry, you don't have to rush out and buy alcohol inks if you do not want to. If you want to try some, you get away with one blue colour. And then we're also going to work with some, where did I put it here? Some what we call alcohol blending solution, or you can use, it's in the medical industry and I'm probably going to butcher the name, isopropyl alcohol. You can get that just at a chemist. So basically blending solution or isopropyl alcohol. If you're not sure which one to buy at the chemist, tag me in the video and I will send you a link for it. It's in a green bottle with a little lizard on it or something. It basically just stretches the dye inks and makes it run a bit more, so that'll be fun to play with. Then to create our backgrounds, we're actually going to use some Colour Blast pigment powders. So Colour Blast pigment powders, there's also quite a few varieties of the pigment powders. Lindy Stamp Gang would work. I believe Paper, there's a few other brands. I believe Uniquely Creative may have some pigment powders. So basically it's a powder, but what it is it's a dye ink. So when you hit water with it or other substances, it then creates a colour. So you need to activate them. So these are Colour Blast ones. And I've actually decanted them and put them into a little container with a pin at the top so I can sort of shake them out. That's why they're not in normal ones. I do have a Lindy's one here we're going to use as well. Again, I mix all different brands up. So if I've got a blue and a Colour Blast and a yellow in Lindy's, it's basically the same thing. It's like going to Coles and Woolworths and buying home brand tomato sauce. Works sort of exactly the same. May give you a slightly different result. But this one comes in a shaker from the Lindy Stamp Gang. So you've got your little shaker there. So these powders go an exceptionally long way. You don't use much of them at all. Then we're going to need some inks. So if you've got archival inks in some blue tones, this one might be a bit green. Or you've got distress inks in blue tones, we need some blue inks. We also need some StazOn ink. Now StazOn ink is important to stamp on our little tiles. Because they're plastic, they need a permanent ink or a oily based ink for the ink to stick. So it stays on as really well. You'll notice when you open the StazOn ink pad, it again has a smell. So it is like a oily based, alcohol based ink. Then some archival ink as well to do all this inking around here. You could also use a Tim Holtz Distress Oxide or ink pad for that as well. We're going to need some salt. Yes, rock salt. Show you what that's for in a minute. You're going to need a spray bottle with some water in it, a palette knife or a spatula or a credit card or something, and a blending brush. And of course some gloves unless you want to look like a blue smurf. So we've gathered all our supplies. I think that's all the basics apart from some scissors, some glue. Oh, the other thing I didn't grab was our number stamps. So I've done a bit of stamping with the numbers. So I'm using this Darkroom Door rubber stamp. Now, I believe Darkroom Door closed for a while and has now reopened in the UK. If you don't have this particular stamp set, no worries. I'm sure in your stash somewhere you would have some kind of number. Any sort of number stamp would work. Even you could use alphabet stamps. You could use texture stamps. And we need a stamping block to put our stamps on. I think that is all our goodies that we need. Let's get messy and let's get started. We're going to do the messiest thing first, so get your alcohol inks ready, get your gloves ready, get your salt ready. We'll do the messy bit first, and then we'll do the bit more non-messy stuff. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to throw my gloves on. I'm trying to put my stuff here so it will not, to cut out the glare because my light is shining on the plastic. So we're going to throw our gloves on unless you want to look like a smurf for the rest of the day. I usually don't wear gloves when I'm crafting, but when I'm doing alcohol inks, I don't like to look coloured for the rest of the day. Okay, I'm going to put one glove on and see how we go. I may have one coloured hand. So grab these plastic hexagon thingy shapes out of your kit. So these have actually come out of your stencil. So these are what we call stencil waste. So they're a pretty cool shape. So I'm trying to stay on this side. So the glare, once we get this bit of plastic out of the way, it won't glare so much. I apologise. Lighting is fun when you're filming videos. So grab these little shapes out. I think you have about 15 to 20. You can colour them all if you want while you're going, but you need 3, 6, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We need 15 for our page. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Why have I got 14, not 15? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Maybe I'll put 14 in your kits. I'm just looking at the page. That's right, we are going to go with 14 and make it work. You should have 14 to 15 unless one is... You know what, I've probably actually pinched one out of the bag for someone else. We taught this as an in-person class. Hang on. 3, 6, 9, 12. Okay, cool. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work in groups of 3 because... Okay, I'm going to work here and then I'm going to push them up. We're going to work in groups of 3 because what we have to do is add the liquid alcohol inks and the salt quite quickly, because if you, by the time you drip alcohol ink on all of them, the alcohol ink will dry. It dries very quickly and you need the salt to hit it very quickly. So this is just this is sea salt. So it's in a grinder. So if you just have regular table salt, that's cool. I just like the chunkiness, the more coarseness of the sea salt when it comes out of the grinder. So I'm going to start with our 3 shapes. We're working on a plastic bag because alcohol ink will stain whatever it hits. So if I do it directly on my glass mat, it'll stain my glass mat. If I do it on my silicone mat over here, it'll stain that as well. So just grab even the plastic bag your kit comes in and let's just go for it. Okay. So we're going to open the alcohol inks and they will have a bit of a smell. So it's good to do this in a bit of a ventilated area with the window open or something if you're sensitive to smells. So I put a couple of drips on. The blending solution will actually make the ink run a bit more. And what I want to do is I'm going to mix 2 colours. If you've only got one blue colour, that's cool. It will dry a bit lighter than it is. So you want sort of puddly effects. And then what I'm going to do is take my salt and put a generous lot on top of the ink. So you're going to put the salt on when it's very wet. And then we're just going to slide these up here to dry. We don't want to take a heat tool to these. And it doesn't matter that we've got the ink underneath, it will not stick to our sheet. So the reason for the salt and what the salt's going to do is the salt crystals are going to suck up the colour and leave white dots. So the more salt you have, the more white dots or speckled effect you'll have. I'll see if I can pick one of these up and see if it's working. So we're going to naturally let these dry. It's the last thing we stick on our page. You can sort of see that the salt is blue now, so it's sucking up that ink. I've just got blue on my... So the salt's going to suck up where the ink or the alcohol ink is, and it's going to leave white little dots. So the more salt you put on, the more dotty it will be. The wetter your ink, the better it works. So let's do these ones. So I'm just putting on, you don't need much alcohol ink, couple of drops of blending solution. The blending solution sort of makes the alcohol ink run a bit more. And I'm not sure why mine's pooling on one side, but I'm just going to make sure all the tile is covered. I should have put that other glove on. That's okay. I don't mind being blue for a while. The alcohol ink will eventually, wash out of your skin. It just takes a couple of washes. Usually when I shampoo my hair the next day, it comes out. Hand sanitizer will get off too if you don't want to look blue. So let's go in with some more. So I'm not squeezing the container. I'm sort of just letting the drips come out of the alcohol ink. So the alcohol inks go a long way. As you can see, when I'm dropping the blending solution on, it is sort of diluting the colour a bit. So just watch you don't put too much blending solution on. It is a bit messy, but it's fun to get messy. Again, normal salt would work. I just like the rock salt. So we're just going to push these up, and we're going to repeat all of the shapes that you've got. Let's do the last 5. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put them aside somewhere, and we're going to let them naturally dry while we work on all our other elements. So this is one of the last elements we stick on our page. And as you can see, the alcohol ink is quite dark in colour, but when it dries and spreads out, it spreads out to be a little less dark. So any sort of darkish blue would work. If you want to go totally different colours with your page, and you've got purple inks and you've got purple powders, and you want to do a purple page, go for it. This page is yours to do what you would like with it. Yep, that's what I was trying to avoid, and I've just got stuff everywhere. So be very quick when you're putting your salt on. Okay. Now, as you can see, these ones are getting quite light up here. If I pick this one up again. Is it? No, it's still wet. So I'm going to naturally let them dry. So put them away for a while. Probably an hour and a half maybe by the time we finish all that other stuff. And then the salt will actually rub off and it will leave the marks underneath. You can sort of see that speckledy look happening. Let me go clean up this. So go pop the alcohol ink pieces to dry somewhere where nothing will disturb them. No cats will jump on them. No children will touch them. And let's come back and we'll start our background pieces. I should have actually put those lids on before I took my glove off. Oh, that lid won't go on. I'll fix that in a minute. I'll be right back with the next step. Okay, we are back to start our 2 backgrounds. Again, getting the messier stuff out of the way so it can dry so we can work on our other pieces. So we're going to use these pigment powders, either Lindy Stand Gang, Colour Blast, or whatever other water reactive powders you may have in your stash. Again, you probably only need 1 blue to do this. I'm adding a bit of yellow to one of the layouts, the second one we do. It's optional, so if you just want to buy one to play with, grab a blue one. Okay, so we're back. Sorry about that small interruption. Children. So I've got navy, cobalt and Duke, which are really dark blues, so you're wanting quite a darker colour to make this work. So any darkish blue would work. And the paper that we're going to work on and the paper I'll put in your kit. So the white paper I'll put in your kit is BRT brand, same company that makes the powders. It's BRT 350 GSM mixed media cardstock. Now that's a whole big mouthful. Basically what it means, it's thick. You can hear the thickness of it. And it takes water, it takes paint, it takes anything you want to throw at it. You don't want to do this technique just on regular cardstock, because your cardstock will disintegrate and you'll go, what the hell am I doing? So you can feel in the pack I've put in some 250 GSM black, and we're going to use that to matte our pages. Then you can feel this one's a lot thicker. So this one's great for mixed media. It's quite affordable too. So the first technique we're going to do is we're going to also need some white gesso or white paint. Either will work. What we're going to do is we're going to grab our Just going to turn this on the side because these have been do it on an angle for some reason. We're going to take some of our white gesso, white paint, and we're just going to do a blob down one side. Left hand, right hand, top, bottom, doesn't matter, one side of your page. You want to be sort of quite generous. Like just do a mountainy bit. And then what we're going to do is, this might be quite hard to see because these powders are very, very fine, is we're going to shake some powders onto here. Now, some of the jars come with shakers, some of them don't. The jars don't come with shakers. Grab a dry paintbrush. You can dip it into the powder and sort of flick it on your page. This is why I like these little jars I got from the $2 shop. So they have a plastic base bit, and they have like a flexible plastic top, and I've just put a drawing pin in the top with a hole. So now they are a shaker. So you can sort of see the little bit of powder up here where my finger is. So powder goes a long way. You don't need a lot, and it's probably going to be hard for you to see on the white bit of paper, but you can see the flecks of powder. And if I bring this up a bit, you might be able to see it a bit better. See, I've only got a little bit of powder. And that one was navy. Let's go in with, which one's a lighter one? This one. So we'll just go in a bit of light. So these powders go a long way, and you don't need a lot of them. Is that one even coming out? I have no idea. Yeah, it is. Okay, now what you're going to do is your powder's on there. So these powders are reactive with water and any water-ish material, like gesso is a water-based material. So this one we're going to activate with gesso. The next one we're going to activate with water. So you have to activate these powders with something. They can't just sit on your page like this. They will just fall off. So what we're going to do is take the back of a spatula, the edge of a credit card, something that we can scrape across with. We're going to go into our gesso and we're going to scrape. Ooh. And we're going to continue to scrape across. Now you can scrape backwards. The more you scrape and activate the powders, the more the powder's going to activate and the more colour you'll get. If you don't, and I want to scrape the one direction, I don't want to scrape up and down and across. I want to keep my scrapingness to either left to right or up and down. You don't sort of want to go everywhere, unless you want to go everywhere. You can experiment with this technique. So scrape as much as you like. I've had lots of powder on here until you're happy. I want a bit more up here. Actually, I might turn this around so I can go from this direction. So you basically want to use up all your gesso. If you've got big clumps on the side that you put your gesso, just sort of flick them off. Oops. You sort of want something like this. So the more you scrape, the more the powder is going to mix with the gesso, and the more you're going to get like just one colour. If you don't like any spots, you can sort of go in and fix a few spots. Knowing when to stop is hard. Okay, stopping. So the more you work your gesso, the more you're going to get like more like this, which is a one tonal colour. You want to have some white spots left. You could scrape whatever's on the back of your spatula on a scrap piece of paper or into your art journal. I'm just going to wipe it off for now. So don't overwork it because you want some of the white to show through. Now, that is the first technique. Now, you want to put this aside to dry. We will come in with a heat tool if we need to dry it off, but maybe by the time we've done our second one. So as you can see, you've sort of got, if I can focus, you can see flecks of it here. So the gesso is enough to activate the powder and sort of stick it to your page. That's really cool. Okay, putting that aside to dry, grab your second sheet of white cardstock. Make sure you don't have any gesso around on your surface, because this one we are going to do with water. So this one I'm going to use a bit of the yellow just to mix it up a little bit, only a slightly bit because I don't want to make my page green. So if you want to make matchy pages, use the same colour. I'm going to use Cobalt. They're basically nearly the same blues. They're just different tones. So again, we are going to shake the powders on, and we're going to use water to activate it. Is any actually coming out of this one? Yeah, probably. You can always add more water later. Add more powder later. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you with the dry brush with this one. So we're going to get, and very important to get a dry paintbrush. This one will work. Dry paintbrush. So this one does have like a big scoopy area. and this one has a shaker. So I'd normally use the shaker, but sometimes you get these and you take the lid off because the lid's just flat and you've got a big open area like this. So you can just tuck your paintbrush in and then just tap. Very important, you don't want to put a wet paintbrush in here. It's probably a bit too much yellow. That's right, we'll deal with that. Probably a bit too much yellow here, but yay. I can always soap it up with a baby wipe or a piece of paper towel in a minute. Now we're going to grab water in a spray bottle and we're going to activate. See how the water's hitting it? So we're just going to flood it with water. Have some paper towel by your side. So I like how it's going all speckledy. The more you spray, the more you'll get this wicking effect here. Yeah, my spray bottle decided it wants to not spray properly. When you're happy, stop. Now I've got some big pools in here I'm not quite happy with, so I'm just going to grab some paper towel. Usually I'd grab a roll of paper towel, but I don't have a roll, so I'm just going to roll up a couple of sheets here. And I just want to gently dab some of this excess pooling up. Just be careful with your paper towel. If it has a pattern on it, you might be impressing your pattern onto your page. But that's always cool too. So you can sort of dab up any of these big pooly bits that you don't like. And stop when you're happy. Now these are water reactive powders, so if you think it's too dark you can go in with some more water to lighten up some areas. So I don't like this patch here. Just spray a bit more water on it and just dab and see how it's sort of bleaching the colour. You don't want it too dark. And these powders will stain your fingers a little, but they're water reactive, so they will wash out better than the alcohol inks. When you're happy, stop. And what I'm going to do is, I know I've just got some overspray here. I'm just going to clean up my table. So I must have got some powder outside my page. So I've got a little bit of yellow in here. The yellow hasn't turned it to green. There's a little bit of orange in the yellow as well. So some of these powders, especially the Lindy Stamp gang, the colours are made up of multiple colours of pigment. So say a dark blue, you might get a bit of green in there, you might get a bit of purple in there. It's how they crush up all the pigments and throw them together to make the colours. So some of them you get a few different variations. So stop when you're happy. Now what you want to do is dry this completely, and you want to dry your other page completely. So you can either sit there with a heat tool, something like this, and we can dry it off. You can let them naturally dry for half an hour or something. I will pause the video because you don't need to watch me sit here and dry them. When they're completely dry, come back and we are going to do some inking on them. And you need it to be completely dry to do your inking. For you, I'll be straight back. Probably take me maybe 10 minutes to dry it with the heat tool with both of them, 5 minutes each. Depends if you're in a hot climate, dries really quickly. Okay, so we've dried off our pages. Stuff piled everywhere. As you can see, this one's a bit curly-whirly, but they will flatten out when we add it to our black page. If they are too curled up like this, you can actually dry them from the back, which will flatten them out, or give them a quick squirt of water on the back, and then they'll flatten out. But don't worry if your pages look a bit curly. It'll still work. Okay, so need a big filming area. So we're going to start on this one, and we're going to put this stenciling in the background, and we're going to do our stamping. So if you want to grab your big stencil that's in your kit. So when you get stencils like this, you don't necessarily need to use the whole stencil, put it down and go over the whole thing. We're just going to use parts of it. So on this layout, we're going to use this part up here of the clock and the cog, and then we're going to use this part down here on our other page. So I want to grab an archival ink. It doesn't have to be archival. A distress oxide would work. A distress ink could work. The only reason I like archival is sometimes I don't know what's happening next on my page, so I like the archival to be permanent. So I'm going to line this part up. So we're going to do this arch here and this arch here. So we're going to create the illusion that the whole thing has a clock on it. So our two photos are going to cover up the bits that are missing, if that makes sense. Clear as mud, right? So we are going to trim this page down a bit. You could do it before you start, or I'm going to do it at the end. So I'm going to come in a bit from the edge. We're going to take about 1/4 inch off each side. And I tend to leave that until I'm done my background, because then if I don't like a particular side, I can chop more off one side than the other. So bring your stencil in a little bit like this, and we're going to ink over these bits. So grab our ink pad. I like to ink with these blending tools. A lot of people sell them now. They're the really little hairy ones. These are actually makeup brushes we stole from the makeup industry. They're great for getting in the finer details of stencils, and they work really well. So this one's my dedicated black one. And I just sort of rub it in the ink pad. You could tack your stencil down with a bit of masking tape or washi tape. I don't tend to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the inside of this stencil and a little bit around the border. Oops. That bit's not quite dry. I just stuck my finger in. Wet gesso. Bear with me a moment. Let's stick that on my ink pad and away there. How's that going? Much better. So as you can see, when I was drying, I was actually lifting my page up. And if you have your page flat to the table, the heat has to penetrate your page and then the table. If you slightly hold your page up, carefully your fingers, the heat will penetrate through the back of the page and dry it a lot quicker. Let's try that again. Is it completely dry? Yes. Do the hand smushing technique. You don't want to get gesso on these brushes. It's not really good. Okay, so we're going to come in a wee little bit. And just going to put my ink pad up there so I can grab it. And I'm just going to start doing circular motions. Now you want to start off quite light. You can always go back in and darken it up. So I'm just going to do this a little bit here, and then I'm going to flip up and show you what I'm doing. So I'm coming just beyond the stencil a little and sort of fading it out. I don't want a harsh line when I come off the stencil. Now, to check if what you're doing, hold the stencil and you can flip it up. If you don't hold the stencil, it's a pain to get it lined back up. But if you hold it with one hand, you can flip it up, and that's a bit sticky down there as well. But I thought all of this was dry. Obviously, I missed bits. Bear with me one moment, because I know I'm going to stick my finger in that again. Okay, so now we're going to work all around here and do our cog up here as well. So I like to hold my stencil quite close to where I'm actually inking. Instead of holding it down here and trying to ink up here, I have my fingers as close to where I'm inking as possible. Just makes, just helps to hold the stencil down firmer where you're actually working. So just making sure when I come off the edge, I'm not sort of stopping and doing a hard edge. So circular motions work really well. As you can see, I'm not really holding it by the handle. I'm tempted to actually cut all these handles off, but I tend to hold it by the head of the distress blending tool. Okay, now when you think you're ready, flip it up and see if you're happy. You can go darker if you want. You can go lighter. I think I went a bit darker in the example, so let's go a bit darker. You could always add more. It is very hard to take it away. So I might go a bit more darker in the actual clocky bits. I've just got my ink pad sitting against something on my bookshelf so I can sort of rub against it and it won't fly all over my table. That flies off screen. Okay, let's check again. Stop when you're happy. If you like it light, stop. If you want a bit darker, keep going. Oh, I like that. Okay, so now we're going to take our stencil and we're going to rotate it. So what's up here is down here. Is that 180 degrees? I think I lost in maths. So we're going to position it again, sort of this in the corner. We're going to cut a little bit off so we like it there. What I'm going to do is turn my entire page up this way, because I find inking in the one spot is easier for my hand than trying to like be contorted. So it doesn't matter if my page is upside down. You might notice that quite a bit when I'm, crafting. Because it's just easier for me and my hand to do the action in the one direction, if that makes sense. I'm sorry if it makes you giddy when I turn things upside down. Just got to remember which side is the right way up. I've done it before on my art journal. Whoopsies. Okay, when you're happy again, hold your hand down and flick it up. So it should look something like this. So we've got this in the top right and the bottom left. When you're putting your page together, you can turn it around to like this. You can have it any way you like. So we're done with our stencil just for now. We do some more stenciling on the other page. Now we want to grab out our number stamps. Some of you may have this set, some of you may have any number stamp, but what I'm wanting for this one is I'm wanting, let me bring my exam, pull back in, should let me quieten that phone down, so it stops bipping at me. So on this example I've stamped just around here with the big chunky number stamps, just to add another layer, another texture. You can sort of see how it just adds another something. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a lot, it just has to be a small amount of something. So I'm wanting this number stamp here that's just a little row of 6 numbers. Oops. So I'm wanting this one here. Whoops. So the little row of 6 numbers. If you only have individual number stamps, you could use those. Stick it on my clear block. Maybe stick it on my clear block, maybe not. I don't think it's going to stick. I'm going to cheat and use a tiny bit of sticky tape because these are cling stamps, but unfortunately it has got a lot of ink on the back of it. Maybe if I cleaned it up it would work. These get used a lot in classes, and the clinginess, it's been off and on a clear block lots and lots, so you can just add a little bit of sticky tape to your clear block and it works. Okay, so now we want to make sure we got the numbers up the right way, so we're stamping this way. So my number reads this way. So what I want to do is I want to start, which way have I done numbers? So I'm following the circle around in the numbers, so we're going to start up here, and what we're going to do is we're going to just tap some ink on, and basically this white bit here we're going to stamp on that bit, and it's going to overlap. So we're going to just start, excuse if my head gets in the way. Going to hold it for about 3 to 5 seconds just so the ink penetrates the gesso and the other ink we've got on the page. And again, we're not looking for perfection, so if it's a little wobbly, we are stamping around a round object. So that's why we want to stamp sort of this big. If your stamp was any longer, it would then go off the circle. So the smaller stamps are better. And again, I'm going to keep flipping my page around. And I want to do the numbers in the same, going in the same direction. And if my numbers are a little bit out of whack, like they're not completely level as they're going around, that's cool. I'm going to keep turning around here. So if one number's a bit up, one number's a bit down, I don't really mind. That's usually the way my pages are anyway. Not looking for perfection, just looking for another layer. Some of it might get a bit covered up because you've got darker inking, but that's cool. It'll show where it wants to show. Keep moving my page around. The reason I keep moving my page around is then I don't have to move my stamp, and I know which direction it's going. So you want to stamp off where you want to continue stamping where your inking is left off, so you want to make sure you overlap a little bit, because then it will just tuck under your photo and it'll look like it's a continuous circle. Okay, so it's looking something like that. So we've got our numbers stamped around here. So the last thing to do with this page is to stick everything on. So we're going to swap and work on the other page. We're still waiting for our little plastic tile-y things to dry. So we are going to grab our other page, which is this one. Sorry guys, I need a bigger desk. All this stuff on it. So we are going to work on this page here. So let's put it up the right way to start with. That would be a great start. So this one has a bit of stamping and a bit of stenciling, and again finished with our tiles and our chipboard. So we're going to grab our stencil again. This time we are going to tack it down because it's just going to be easier. So I'm just going to grab some masking tape, if I can find the end. Nope, thought I had the end. Oh, there it is. So a trick with masking tape is to de-sticky it. Stick it on your pants or your shirt, get a bit of lint on it, and make it not so sticky. So basically I want to center the stencil to start with. So we want to put some of this, we're going to just use the hexagons down here, and we're just going to tack this over here somewhere. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use I didn't grab another blending tool and I don't know where they are. So if you only have the one blending tool, the ink will dry on here. So I'm just brushing it onto some paper towel to sort of clean off any ink that might be residual on the little bristles. The bristles don't hold a lot of ink anyway. And then I'm going to grab my blue inks. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some blue inking. What colour am I going to do? I'm going to do this one. So I'm going archival ink. What's that one? Cornflower blue. So it's a bit of it's sort of a bluey grey. I like these little archival inks. You can have lots of colours. So I'm going through the hexagons. I'm not trying to go to the edge, and I'll just do a couple here. I might have to get. Let's see if it's working. Ah, it is working. Okay. Do a little bit more and then I'll show you. If your colour from your powders is a lot darker, you might need to go a darker, whoops, don't like these little ink pads, they just run all over the table when you're trying to ink. So I'm just going to hold this and flip it up. See how we got this hint of this little white here? So it's quite subtle, but you can see, so the white is the original colour and we're putting like darker colours in. So it doesn't matter if you miss one or two hexagony things, we're sort of going to do a few blobs of it. And we're going to move our stencil up here. So again, it's just adding another layer. Mixed media is all about layering. And as you layer up, think of it as a pyramid. So your first layer has a lot more on it. Your second layer has a little less. Your next layer has a little less. And away you go. So when you have a bit of interest, and my background is a bit dark, so I'm trying to go a bit darker in spots. So you can sort of see it quite showing here. So it's just adding a bit more depth. Now, before we move our stencil, because it's a pain to line it back up again, we are going to go into our stamps again, and we're going to grab out this number 5 because I like that one. What else have I used? We've used small round dude. We've used parts of this one. Okay. Any number stamps would work. So we've basically we've got a single number in a circle. We've got one that says a number 5, and we've got this little collection of numbers. So we're not going to put them on a block this time, but what we're going to do is, this is a really cool way to stamp. I'm going to put this over here so it sits down a bit flatter. So we're going to leave our stencil in place, and we're going to stamp through our stencil. So our stencil is only going to be in the little areas, and these white interconnecting areas are still going to stay unstamped, if that makes sense. So if I stamp just on here, it will stamp on these white bits and we'll sort of lose them. So this is why we're going to keep our stencil in place, and this is a really cool way to do some stenciling with a bigger background stamp as well, because I'm going to deliberately stamp over some of the connecting things and then show you. So I'm going to grab this big one first, and just plop it in some ink, and then I'm just going to do again, we don't want this to be quite like really dark. We're just wanting to add another layer. So I'm just going to do, I'm deliberately stamping this one over the stencil, and then I'm going to flip it up and show you what I mean. So when I flip up the stencil, it is a bit hard to see, but can you see that the stamping is here, but the stamping is not in this white interconnecting bit? See here, the bit of the stamp's missing. So it's it's a different way to contain your stamping. So this number 5 is really cool to go in and just doing one of the holes. This one I like because I can just stick it on my fingers. So sort of do as many as you're happy. We're going to move it to a couple of other places on the page. We'll do a circle one. Which way does that go? That way. So again, just adding some more interest to the, don't have to stamp in every area, so adding just a bit of interest. Let's see what we've got now. See how we've sort of got, it's subtle, but it's there. So now we're going to move our tape, and we're going to move our stencil. Let's get our stamps out of here for a minute. So I've sort of done a collection down here. We sort of want, I'm going to do a collection over here. Now my inking is a bit darker on this example than my other example. So you'll find that the, actually no, it's probably about the same actually. This is quite subtle, and then you can see the stamping in here. So again, it's in the background, but it's not very overpowering, if that makes sense. So these are sort of our main focal images, well, obviously our photo is, and then these are more in the foreground, and then this is in the background. So if you use really black, really thick stamps, it's probably not going to look as good. You want sort of the more finer ones, if that makes sense. Clear as mud, right? So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to take our ink, archival or distress inks will work too, whatever colours you got. I find I look at my ink colours more than whether they're distress or archival. So again, flipping up to see, you can see it a bit more over here. I might go a bit darker. There we go, we've sort of got that. We want to go a bit darker over here. So the harder you push and the more you go around and around and around and around and around in the one spot, the darker it will be. Okay, that's looking good. Now we'll do some stamping. Oops. So again, leaving our stencil in place, and please make sure you don't stamp upside down. Do not look at my page too close, because yeah, well, we may have stamping upside down on mine, but try to get your stamping up the right way. As I say in my in-person classes, do what you're told, don't do what I do. So we're finished with that one. I tend to go from sort of the biggest to the smallest stamp, but there's no set rule. I do like this stamp because it just sticks on my finger. It's really cool. That one you can't really see down the bottom, but that's okay. This one I want to get up the right way. So if you didn't have stamps, you could maybe handwrite some numbers. Whoops. I'll put another one on. Just need to know it's not going to go upside down. So over here. I'm going to take off our bit of masking tape and see what we've got. See how we've got this over here. So what I might do is I might do some, just thinking where it needs it. I didn't go quite high on the top. So I think it needs some just over here So have a look. We've sort of got it down here. This is, I like up here, so I don't really want to disturb that up there. So I'm going to put a little bit over here. So everyone's layout's going to be slightly different. I can be cheeky and line it up down here, which would be cool. So it continues up here a bit. You find you might like the bit that you've got up here and you don't. It's not where I want to put that tape. Let's go over here. So you might find you like a particular spot. Stop when you're happy. That's not the black I want. This one. And everyone's pages is going to turn out slightly different as well. So this one, because it's got lighter pigment powder, it'll probably stand out a bit more, which would be cool. You can see how this is standing out a bit more. We might bring this up. I've got a bit of that Cogs, but that doesn't matter. Bring it around here. Okay, I'm liking that. I just want to bring a little bit in here if I can. And a little bit, I think, down here. Knowing when to stop is hard. It's hard to teach you to stop because I'm still learning that. Oh, I'll just do a little bit more. And that little bit more sometimes is too much. Okie dokie. Now we're going to go in with the same stamps again. Just remember holding your stamps for a few seconds just so the ink can grab onto the paper. I just stamped over some more stamping, but that's okay. Cool. Oops. Might do another 5 up here. And one over here. Doing a bit less stamping this time because I've got a smaller area that I am stamping in. Might put one up here. Sort of scattering the stamps too. I'm not having them all in one line. We might go over here. Maybe one down here. Okay, stop when you're happy. Let me put my stamps away because they often get lost on my desk, which is not a good look. I love this stamp set. I've used this so many times. It just had some really cool big texture ones and it has some really cool little texture ones. The only problem I've got is it never goes back in where it's supposed to go. Oh, maybe it goes like that. I don't know. I can never get it back in the case where it's supposed to go. Take our masking tape off and have a look at our page. We're done with our stencil for now, so you can pop that aside. So now we want to go investigate to see if our... Actually, before we do that, we'll cut our pages down. I was going to say investigate to see if our alcohol tiles that we put alcoholic on are dry. Let's cut these pages down and mount them on the black, and then we will take a bit more time for our alcohol things to dry. Just got to grab my paper trimmer. Okay, grab my paper trimmer. I've grabbed my 2 bits of black cardstock that were in my kit. My paintbrush out of the way. So what I tend to do is to get a skinny border like this, I cut an 1/8 of an inch off 2 sides, and that gives you like the 1/16 of an inch border. If you want to have a bigger border, if you don't want to mount them, don't mount them. It's up to you. Okay. So, if you have a better way than I'm just about to show you that doing mounting your pages, use your own idea. So these pages are 12 inches big. So if we cut this at 11 3/4 on 2 sides, it will work. Me and cutting paper, it does not work. Okay, so 11 3/4. I find cutting it off 2 sides is better than cutting it off 4 sides. So 11 3/4. And when you cut these off, so this will give you half that size border around your edge. So it's going to be a nice fine black border. So I've cut that one. Let's cut this one while we got it. So I like to cut my borders last because then I can decide, ooh, which bit don't I like. This bit's a bit white down here, so I'm going to cut that off, so that goes that way. So the bit you cut off is always hanging outside your trimmer. The bit you're lining up is the bit you're keeping. Did that move? Possibly. So if you cut your page down first, you then can't decide which bits you like to keep. So I've cut off that side. So I'm going to cut off this side. And remember, the bit you're cutting off hangs over your page. So if you do cut down your pages first, then you're sort of stuck with what your design looks like now. Let's get rid of our paper trimmer. Put that somewhere. Over there sounds good. Now, I've got a really good trick to how to line these up, because lining up stuff like this is not my forte. So, I like to use double-sided tape to stick mine down. If you've got a different way of doing it, do your way. But if you want a really cool trick way, this is a cool trick I learned off someone on YouTube. I cannot remember who it was. Now, this only works if you use a continuous piece of sticky tape along all four sides. So I'll put one down here, and I'm going to grab one end and just pull its tail off. So only this little part, about an inch of the stickiness, is exposed. Because I find a lot of people expose all their sticky tape, and then you just get into a whole lot of issues. So again, peeling off one edge, doesn't matter which edge it is, or one side of the end, one end of the sticky tape. So that's 3 sides done. Sorry, it's hard to see white tape on white paper. Doesn't matter if your tape is not, like, it doesn't actually match. Like, as long as it's one continuous piece, this will work. It doesn't have to be exactly touching. It can be a little, like, there's like a centimetre gap between some of my bits, but that's okay. So, when you're finished, you should have 4 little tails. It doesn't matter if you have 2 tails here and 2 tails here, or 4 around. And I'm going to stand up to do this bit because that helps get one bit of paper out of the way. Okay, now, sorry about that. I'm going to get this one out of the way, just for now. Stick that up there, above my camera. I'm going to line this bit of paper up. I'm going to put this bit of paper on. See how this slides around now? So it's not actually going to catch the sticky tape until I ask it to catch. So I'm going to take my lines, and I'm lining up with this corner and this corner, and I'm sort of holding it down to see where it is. I might actually flip around this way. So I'm lining it up with one corner, with another corner, and because you don't have much of the sticky tape exposed, it needs to go up a bit. It will not stick, and this corner did stick. It will not stick much. So then you can gently persuade it to let go. If you expose all the sticky tape, I detest lining these things up because I always get it wrong. Let me try that again. Okay, trying to do one corner. You get one corner right, then it sort of lines up. Okay, I think we got it. When you're happy with where it's sitting, I think I'm happy. We're going to go with it. One hand in the middle. It's going to hold both pages down. Gently pull one of the levers, one of the tabs, and press. Gently pull another one and press. Now you've got 2 sides down. Gently pull another one and press. And if you've done it correctly, don't look at mine too closely, it should be nicely lined up. As I said, don't look too closely at mine. So we're going to do that again on our other page. So I'm just going to sit down and do that. So it helps when you're lining up, if you're lining up on black, that your table's white or a different colour. You're trying to line it up on the same colour paper as your table, it's a little harder. So one continuous strip of tape on all of the 4 sides. And that's enough to stick it down. You don't need tape in the middle. With this mixed media cardstock, I do like to run my tape. This is a centimetre double-sided tape, so I like the thicker tape. I do have the thinner one, but it's a bit wonky, but that's all right. I do have the thinner one, but I don't particularly like it. For the mixed media cardstock, you want to have a really decent adhesive and a thick one. this works with any thickness of adhesive. Now, grab our tails. This time I'm going to do 2 tails close together. Does not matter. As long as a tail, and all I do is peel it back about an inch and then sort of just squish it down with my finger so it folds. And I like doing it with this double-sided tape as opposed to one of those tape runners, because if you do the tape runner, everything's exposed all at once. It's going to give this a bit of a curl because it's being interesting. Let's get this one out of the way. Again, I'm going to stand up because it's easier for me. Let's see if I can do it better this time without fiddling around with it. So I'm going to line up this corner and usually top corner. Once I'm happy, I think I'm happy with that. Hand in the middle and pull. Once you get 2 sides down, it's pretty good to... Oops, I lost my tail. That's right, we can send the cardstock up to find our tail. There we go. How does that look? Pretty good. We'll get rid of all our tails off the desk. Now you want to grab your chipboard, you want to go check on your little tiles that we put alcohol ink on. Bring all those back to the table and we will get constructing. Okay, so I've grabbed our chipboard. We're going to use that in a minute. Let's just stick that up there for now. And I'm going to put my 2 pages aside because I'm about to make a salty mess everywhere. So these should be dry now, and what you can do is actually rub the salt off. So if I hold this one up, see how it's got speckles on it? So you just want to gently rub the salt off. That one's probably still a bit wet. Let's give these a quick dry. Let's start with the top ones, that might make more sense. That's better. So the salt should just rub off. Again, you can put your gloves on, but I decided not to. So you just want to rub all the salt off and see how it's sort of all speckledy. That's what the salt does, it makes it look speckledy. You don't want to rub too hard because you don't want to scratch at it. You sort of want to rub with your flat parts of your thumb and your fingers because you don't want to scratch that ink off it. And that one's still a bit wet underneath. Sometimes the ink underneath doesn't dry as quickly. Now just being careful because this paper, probably do this outside would be best. Because I will end up with salt all over my desk. I'm trying to keep the salt on the plastic bag, and then I'll throw the plastic bag out. Yeah, I'd probably put gloves on for this. I'm getting absolutely smurfied. Oh well. You haven't crafted unless you're half covered in stuff, aren't you? Isn't that the rule? So I'm just using flat parts of my hand to scrape all the salt off, not using my fingernails. Could use a soft cloth, that would work well, but you don't want anything abrasive. Just have to put up with me for being a blue spurf the rest of the video. So you can use your alcohol inks on, this is offcuts of stencil. You can use it on acetate. You can cut out your own acetate shapes. You could, if you've got a die cut machine, you could die cut acetate shapes and colour them up for your pages. You can also use Yupo paper, which is a synthetic plastic paper that alcohol inks work well on. Alcohol inks just don't work well on normal paper. Photo paper works well with alcohol inks, like glossy photo paper. If you've got any of that hanging around, that works really well. I've used that before. Last one. Then I'm going to clean up my mess before we go forward. Oh. Okay, let me pause this video go clean up my mess, I'm going to fold this up with all the salt and throw it in the bin. Clean up my table, clean up my fingers, and I'll be right back. So I've cleaned up all our salt. We've got all our pieces ready to go. So on this one, I've actually added some stamping to the little tiles. On this layout, I haven't. So it's up to you if you want to do stamping or not. If you copy me completely, that's fine. We're going to stamp 9 with stamps. So we do need to use a Stays On ink pad this time because we are stamping onto plastic. I'll just throw my stamp up here. What stamps have I actually used? So we've used the number 5, we've used that one, and we've used that one. Okay, so I'm going to grab out the number 5 again. We're going to grab out the little number, and we're going to grab out this one, which is just a bit of numbery textures. So we're sort of going to pick the lightest ones because the stamping will sort of stand out on the lighter ones the better. So that one's a light one. They're dark, 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 light, light. Mine are quite dark. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going to stamp on 6 of them. So the stamping will work better on the light ones. If you want to turn them over, you still see a little bit of the blue sometimes. If you want the stamping to stand out, we're going to stamp on 6 of them. Okay. So Stays On ink is an oily ink that will stamp on plastic and non-porous surfaces. I'm going to see if I can use the stamping block for this one, just so I have a bit more control. So I'm going to dab it into the Stays On ink pad. Make sure your Stays On ink pad is nice and juicy. And then you want to hold it for a few seconds. Longer than that. And mine are, actually I'm going to use the back. Use the back of these. Because mine have got a bit dark. And I like the back, it's a bit more subtle. I'm going to stamp on the back of a few. There we go, that looks a lot better. So I'm actually going to stamp on a couple of the back. So you can stamp on the back or the front. I sort of want the stamps to be a bit more prominent. So I'm sort of going to go 3 number 5s. Because when I stick these on the page, they're going to sort of cluster in groups of 3. And then this one, I'm going to leave and see if we can get some light stamping on it. Not really. Let's do this one. So the stamping may or may not show up. It depends on how dark ink you've used, how how much ink has, how much of the alcohol ink has showed. But even, whoops, sorry, not on camera. Even this one's quite subtle. Whoops. That one's a bit better because it's on the back. What have we got? 2, 4. So these are going to go in a group of 3. So I'm just having a play around with how they're going to look. Do I need to use this stamp? I don't think I will this time. So stamp as many as you would like. I think we use 9 on one of the pages. And then we'll use the others on the other. Actually, I'm just going to put my stamps away because I have a habit of losing these on my desk and then having to find them if I don't put them away straight away. Okay, so let's do this one first. So we have some, grab your photos if you are working along and actually putting photos on while you're doing the layout. If you're going to be like me and put some places for our photos, that will work too. I sort of offset mine, have them straight if you like. I like them crooked because then I don't have to get them straight. So see how that gives us the illusion that that whole round thing is on our page and no one knows we haven't done it all. Then we're going to have a bit of a play around with our tiles. That one's a bit wobbly wobbly, isn't it? So I'm sort of got one connecting up and under this photo here. I've got sort of one up here filling in a bit of space. Let's have a bit of play around up here. So when I'm grouping them, I'm sort of grouping them like they'd come out of the stencil. And I do want to sort of have them coming out from the photo mat, not just floating in thin air. I like some of the backs better than the fronts. And then we have one, this comes in a bit, and then we have some coming off the edge of the page over here. So put that main one in, and then we'll have this one somewhere here. And I'm actually going to cut this one in half so I can tuck it half underneath. So these are plastic, so they will just snip in half. So I'm going to put that there. That, something like that. So it looks like it's coming out from under the photo mat. If you want to play around with decorating yours in a different way, go for it. Now we've got some little cogs now. With all this chipboard on this layer, I haven't coloured it. I've just used it in its natural raw state. Now, if you find you want to add a bit of colour to your chipboard, colour up your chipboard. If you want to leave it in the natural state, I sort of found, A, I couldn't decide what colour I wanted to paint it. That was why I left it natural. But B, it sort of just worked. So I decided if I painted it black, it would look too dark. Probably look different with a photo, but with the black photo mat. That one's on here, that's on the other layer. So if you want to paint your pages, paint your chipboard, go for it. So what I did is I just layered a chipboard element over the top of the little plastic layouts, just the little plastic doohickeys, places, just to sort of add a bit more of a texture to layer. And this one I cut to just add a bit of a border to the page. So where if we cut it, we've just snipped it here. Again, if you want to use this as a full frame, you don't have to cut it. You can finish your layout however you like. So I say to people, these are your pages, for your albums. This is just a technique or a way of doing it. If you want to change things around, go for it. If you want to add foam tape, go for it. If you want to add more photos, if you want to add less photos, you change it around like you would like it. So I think I'm happy with that now. I'm going to stick my photo mats down with some tape just in the middle because I want to be able to tuck these plastic hexagons. They're not hexagons because they're not 6. They're not 8, but you know what I mean. So if you want to raise this on foam tape, go for it. I don't like a lot of foam tape in my album because it does get quite bulky with the chipboard as well. If you don't want to add the chipboard, don't add the chipboard. It's entirely up to you. Finish your page how you would like. Now we want a good glue to glue this plastic down, like I'm reaching over here to find my glue. I've got Couture Creations all-purpose glue, really good glue. Art glitter glue is good. You just want a really good craft glue to stick these plastic pieces down. So I'm going to start with this one. And I'm just going to tuck it under the mat. And then with the chipboard, I'm just going to put a couple of blobs around on the fattest bit of the chipboard. This glue does dry clear, so if I have an oopsie and it comes out, sorry, my page is all crooked. If it comes out around the shape, which mine has, it will dry clear. So again, just going to put a blob of glue and I'm going to tuck that under there. I don't like things floating around in no man's land, so I tend to have things connected. So this little cluster is connected to the under the photo mat just by one of the pieces. then it looks like it's not floating, if that makes sense. If you like floating things, have floating things. For some reason my head does not like floating things. So then we'll just stick one of the chipboard pieces on top. Oops, I had one there and I grabbed a spare one. Okay, I haven't put this photo mat down yet. So I love how everyone puts their own personal touches to their layouts, moves things around, does things a bit different to accommodate your photos. So the classes are more around techniques than like exactly follow this image, this particular layout, but if you do want to follow exactly along, you can as well. Love to see your pages too. If you do upload them onto social media, you can tag Scrapbooking and then I can see them when I go searching for that tag. I do that a couple of times a week to see what my products are lurking out in social media. It's always fun to see how people have created with them. If you want to just private message me your layout, because it's got photos in it and you can't share it, if you private message me a picture, it doesn't go anywhere else except for my eyes only, and I have a bit of a squeeze, which is always fun. So there's that option as well. Probably putting a bit too much glue on these, but well, I like things to be stuck down, and they are plastic, so they do need a generous amount of glue. Now I will position my framey things. What have I done? So the frames don't really have a right and wrong side, so if you want to flip them around and have them in a different direction, that is cool too. So they don't, you just might find on one of the sides it has a few more black marks than another side, because these are laser cut by myself. And sometimes my laser machine has hissy fits and just puts a bit more black stuff on it than it should. But these ones look pretty good. So I'm just sticking that over. So obviously my photo is where the black is. That's my stand-in photo. One day I might put photos on these pages to see if my any got pictures of my daughter. I only scrapbook my daughter, and I don't do many pages. I have to find some pictures of her. Oh, maybe doing her robotics. That would work really well on this page. I have to get us a post and some pictures. Okay, so when we stuck all our bits down, have we stuck all our bits down? Whoops, that is that page done. So I like how we've got the shininess of the plastic and the alcohol inks. It adds a bit more of a dimension to the page as well. So there's page 1 done. Let's do page 2. So page 2 is slightly different, but sort of the same. So I've designed these as they can be doubles in your page, like next to each other. I find I like double pages to sort of match. So the colours sort of match, but the techniques are different. So they could be from the same event, or they could be totally different pages in your album as well. You get lots of decisions in my classes. Now, make sure we've got this up the right way to start with. And this one has a bit more yellow in it than my original one, but that's really cool too. So for this one, I've actually replaced these shapes in the stenciling that I put on the page. So as you can see here, they are placed inside the stenciling. So that sort of adds a bit of coolness to it too. Okay, let's put that over there. So again, we're going to have a play around with a photo. This one I decided to put one photo on. Here we go. Here's our photo. Going to go about yay. So now I'm just going to play around with where I'd like my pieces. Okay, so just playing around to start with of where I want things. I didn't actually do any stenciling up here, so we're just going to add some elements up here. So I sort of want the, maybe that one and that one. Maybe that one and that one. I don't want to sort of cover up a bit of me stamping, but if we do, we do. Before I go to place it, it's got stamping. Actually, I might use some of the lighter ones. And then we might go like that. And then off, maybe, now I'm being indecisive. Maybe we'll go like this. We'll stick that one there for now. Okay, now we're going to have some fun with our chipboard. So we've got 2 chipboard frames here, and what I will do is some of it goes under the frame here, and this one goes under here. So the bits that are hiding under the frame, under your photo, we're actually going to snip off. So we're going to snip them off like, so cut it 2 chains in from the corner and 2 chains in from the corner. Then you've got enough to tuck underneath, and you've got enough to play with on your other bits. And I cut that one a bit short, but we're just going to make it work. No mistakes in scrapbooking. So what I'm going to do is actually put foam tape under my photo. I don't like to use foam tape a lot of times, but because I'm sticking the chipboard frames under the photo, it just needs to be lifted up a bit. And I apologise, I think I just stopped the video and then started it again because I hit my mouse with my scissors. So apologise if it was a little bit disjointed just then. So all we're doing is we're putting foam tape onto our photo mount so that our chipboard can just tuck under the frame. If you don't want to put foam tape in your album because it gets a bit bulky, you can just have your chipboard, it's about the same thickness as the chipboard anyway, you can just have it sort of at the edge. So we're going to stick our framey down somewhere like that. This one I'm going to go a bit straighter because we're going to go a bit straighter. Now I like to play around with where I'm going to put them. See how that's going to tuck under there? And this one is hopefully going to tuck under because I cut a bit short. It's just going to tuck under. It's still going to work. And it's going to go like something like that. And then what I want is I want my elements sort of touching. So I've got this bit and this bit to go. So that bit went over there. So this smaller bit sort of connected over here. So let's connect it like here. And then we put a bauble, it's not Christmas time, a cog on the bottom. So this is all sort of connected. So the shiny pieces are sort of connected in a cluster. It's not that I just don't have things freely hanging around. So I've got this tucking in under here. Again, if you've got better places to put things, go for it. I'm sure I want to move that. I don't want that as, why is that not as high? Because I probably cut it a bit. So I want that down there. I want to cut a couple of these chain links off because I don't want it as high as that. So basically I don't have things floating in midair, not connected to each other. So when you're sort of clustering, I think of the analogy as a gushing tap. The tap starts running and everything sort of runs off each other. So I've sort of got this cluster up here. It's connected to the frame. This bit's coming out from the frame. This bit's hanging around at the moment, not connected to anything, but we will use that. Maybe I'll connect it with a cog. So on this side we've got this frame and then we've got this bit coming out and this bit connected, and this bit's almost connected. It's not just floating up here for some reason. It's close enough to be connected even though it's not quite connected, if that makes sense. But it's all sort of flowing and all sort of connecting, if that makes sense. So when you're happy, stick it down. So am I happy with, do I want to make that more subtle? So I've got darker pieces. Actually, I think I like the darker pieces. This is the procrastination stage. And trust me, I procrastinate lots before I design these classes. And the second time I do the class and film it, my class is a little different anyway because the colours look a little different. Sometimes I place things in a different way. But when you're happy, stop and stick it down. I think I'm happy with that. So when you're sticking the chains down, you don't need to get a lot of glue on them. You just need to get a bit of glue sort of on the thickest bits. It's probably a bit too much glue. Again, when you're sticking chipboard, you want a really good adhesive. And trust me, those white bits will disappear. So I'm going to put down these. Actually, I need to put these down first because it's going underneath. Just put that one down. is where? That one here? I think it was. It's there now because it's stuck. Okay, so that's there, and that comes off there. Okay. So you can also take a photo of what your page looks like before you start taking elements off to stick them down, because sometimes I forget if there's lots of elements where they're supposed to go. There we go. Oops. And now we've got this bit coming off. So again, you could colour the chipboard if you wanted to bring a bit more white into the layout. Depends what colours are in your photos too. So if you've got a bit of white in your photos and you want to sort of emphasise that, then you can do that. And this is a little different to the one that we did before, but that's okay. And your page will be different too. Don't feel you have to just exactly copy my page because it's not working with your photos, or you want to change it around slightly. You have that option. I'm just going to tuck this chipboard just underneath and have it going over those two elements, and then have this connected up here. This is quite quick drying glue, so it's really good. Okay, and there we go. That is our finished layout. That was our sample. So our finished layout is quite a bit darker because I obviously was a bit more heavy-handed with the pigment powders. But it also shows you if you want to go darker or lighter, the pigment powders give you that versatility to make your own backgrounds as well. So if you don't have a background that suits your photos, you can then go and make one. Thank you very much for purchasing this class, and I hope you can find some photos to match your pages, and I'd love to see them if you do share them on social media. If you don't want to, that's fine too. If you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to pop a comment on the video below and I will get back to you, or you can private message me as well through the website. Thank you very much, and I hope you're as blue as I am. I think I'll go wash my hands again. Thank you very much for playing along, and I will put some photos of these ones, of the completed ones, at the end of the video. I think that's all for now. Bye for now. Time to go clean up.